Alright, today we'll continue the sample demo program for the ORC Microbit Challenge. Last time we created the following program. Here, at the start of the program, by default we set the volume to the max volume. In here, this is our event handler. This is our event handler for our logo button, which is the power button in our program. And here, if we press it, power is false, and power becomes true, and the small square icon is shown. Then when we start a melody, and then press the logo button, or the power button, then it goes in here, and it turns the music off, and shows a small square icon. And if we click it again, then it powers off a microbit, resets the song index, and clears the screen. Now, we also programmed button B to be our forward button, and button A to be our reverse button. And the event handlers for them, for button A and for button B, look fairly similar, except in button A, we decrement the song index. So we go to the previous song, and on button B, we increment the song index. So we go to the next song. In both of them, we have an if, and although these ifs are different, they have a similar function. So in button B, this if is so that if we're on the last song and we want to go to the next song, we go to the very first song because we don't have a song with index 3. And for button A, if we click the A button when we're on the first song, and we want to go to the previous song, it goes to the last song. And here in both of them, we call the play control function in the background. Here, let's make sure that they work. Now, the play control function here stops the previous melody from playing, and then it has this if-else block, which checks the value of the song index, and based on the value of a song index, we show the corresponding icon and play the corresponding melody. Here, if I go into blocks, this is what the program looks like in blocks. This onStart block sets the volume to the max value, which is 255. Here we got our logic for the logo pressed event handler. Here we got our event handlers for button A and button B, and they look very similar, as you can see. And here we got our play control function, which, based on the song index, shows the corresponding icon and plays the corresponding melody. Now, in this program, we will slightly change the behavior of buttons A and B. So for button B, if a player is stopped and button B is pressed, we would like a song to just start playing without switching to the next song. And in order to do that, we need our song index to increment only if a song is playing at that point. So to do that, we're going to put this into an if play. So if a song is playing and the button B is pressed, then we increment the song index by 1. If the song is not playing, then this will be false and the song index will stay the same. Let's see if it works. Notice the first time that when I clicked it, it started playing the very first melody, Jingle Bells. And we had that problem last time when button B switched the song regardless, that the first time that you click it, it skips onto the second melody. And here, after I clicked the B button another time, it switched to Astronomia. Now I stopped it, so if I click button B again, it should start playing Astronomia. No, this works as it should. And now for button A. So for button A, if a player is playing and button A is pressed, we will like to play the current song from the beginning. And when button A is pressed one more time within 3 seconds, it switches to the next song in a reversed order. And in order to do that, we need to get the time when the button was clicked for the first time, and then the time when the button was clicked again. And using these 2 times, we can get the time between clicks, and we can see if the button was pressed again within 3 seconds. And if it is, we can switch to a previous song. And now, in order to do that, we'll need a variable to keep track of the click time. And let's call it click time. Set it 0 by default. Now, in here, after the song index decrement, we're going to write click time equals, and then go into advanced control, and we're going to use a function called millis, control.millis. So this function gets the number of milliseconds that have passed since the program was powered on. So pretty much the time in milliseconds. And now here we'll put this song index decrement into an if, and in here we're going to put another one of these blocks, and we're going to subtract click time and compare it to 3000. Now what this does is it takes the current time, and from the current time it subtracts the previous time when the button was clicked. And so that will give us a difference in time. So the time between the 2 clicks in milliseconds. And now we compare it to 3000 milliseconds. So this if works only if the time between clicks is less than 3 seconds, or 3000 milliseconds. And if it's less than 3 seconds, we go back to the previous song. Otherwise, we just play the same song again. Let's see if it works. So I clicked it a few times, and as you notice, when I clicked it fast, it switched to a previous song. And when I didn't click it fast, when I waited a bit, it repeated the same song. And yeah, now this works. Here, I'll go into blocks and show how it looks like now. So for button B, the only thing that really changed here is this if was added. If play, then change song index by 1. Before, this was just in here, in this if, without this new if play. If. Now for button A, this is what it looks like now. Here, we have our if, and this is what the millis block looks like in JavaScript. In block mode. So here we subtract the click time, compare it to 3000, and then change song index by -1. And here we set click time to millis, or current time in milliseconds. Now, also the requirements state that the music player must play each melody in order and restart the first melody after the last one. Also pay attention that there's a new requirement that each melody should be no longer than 2 minutes. Now, our player currently does not play melodies in order. It plays just the selected melody and then stops. And there's a number of ways to fix it. Here, I'll actually show. So after this melody finished, as you notice, it did not continue playing the next melody. And the easiest way to fix it is click in some way clicking button B. So if we click button B, it'll switch to the next melody. Now, can we program to simulate clicking the button B in the program? Actually, yes. This is a very common approach to programming, and it's called firing an event. Now, we'll go into play control, and after the if-else block, we're going to put if play. So if we're playing a melody, and let's say one of the melodies exited, so it finished playing, then in here, go into advanced control, and here we're going to use this block, raise event. And this just fires an event. So first, we need to specify where the event is coming from. And we want it to come from, hold on. We need it to come from button B. Now in here, in here we need to specify the event that we want to simulate. And we want the button click event. So now, once the melody is done playing, it should go in here, and then simulate a click to the button B and switch to the next melody. Let's see if this works. So, as you noticed, when we click the B button to switch melodies, it switches to the next melody, but then it skips over it and goes to the melody after that. And the reason for that is, when we click the button B, it calls the play control function again. So there's two play control functions running at the same time. And then the second play control function runs this line of code, which stops all the sounds. And so in the first call of a play control function, which is playing a melody, say Jingle Bells, then the stop all sounds in the second play control makes it exit the melody. And now, once it exits that, it goes into here, and since play is true, it calls an event to click button B. So, although the melody didn't finish by itself, we still simulated a click to the button B and switched to the next melody. Now, in order to fix it, we need some kind of way to keep track whether the melody block exited because we clicked button B or because it exited by itself and the melody finished. So for that, we need to keep track of all the clicks to the buttons. And we're going to do that using another variable. Let's call it click and set it to 0 by default. Now, oh, never mind. Now in here, every time, actually before I add this, here we'll go into blocks and we need to add a new parameter to the play control function. And we do that in block mode by doing edit function, number. Well, we want a number type variable, so I'm going to click number, and here we write the name of variable. We'll call it CL, which is short for click. Now this was added here. If we go into JavaScript, you'll notice that this input parameter actually looks different from the input parameters we made when we're programming web pages in JavaScript. So in microbit, after an input parameter, you have to write a colon and then write the type of the input variable. And now in here, we actually need to put this input parameter. And for that, we're going to write ++ click in both. And now what this does is every time a button is clicked, it increments the click variable, increases it by 1, and then passes that value into play control. Now the last thing we have to do is add an AND operator in this if, and here we do CL equal to click. So what we're doing here is when we call the play control function, we pass in the value of click at the time when the function was called. And so this is just a snapshot of what the variable click was when this function was called. And here we compare the variable click when the function was called and the current value of click. And so if they are the same, that means from the time when the melody started playing to the time when the melody exited, we haven't clicked any buttons, which means it exited by itself And because of that, we need to fire an event to switch to the next melody automatically. However, if click is not equal to CL, that means we are actually clicking buttons. And after the function was called. And so that means that the play melody block exited because of a button click. Well, because the next play control stopped it. And for that, in that case, we don't need to raise an event to switch to the next melody. Let's see if it fixed our problem. So when I click button B, it was not skipping melodies. And when I played the Mary Had a Little Lamb melody and let it play to the end, once it stopped, it went to the next melody, Jingle Bells. And so this successfully fixed our problem. Now, the program looks pretty cool, but we can make it even better. We can add a volume control feature and volume control indicators, which is actually a must-have feature for any music players. So here, we'll go into blocks. And here, we'll make a forever loop. And let's drag the set volume block here. And in the set volume block, we're going to put the sound level oval in input. Now, this sound level oval is this input here. So in a normal microbit, this sound level input is the input that the microbit gets from the microphone. So pretty much how loud the sound is outside the microbit. So how loud you're talking, and so on. But here in the virtual version of microbit, it's actually an adjustable slider, kind of like the range input that we did in HTML. And now here we pass this sound level input into the volume of a microbit. And now on a real microbit, this wouldn't be very practical because we are setting the volume of a microbit to the input it gets from a microphone or how loud someone's talking. So you'll get a microbit that is as loud as the person talking to it. But in the virtual version of microbit, we have a very nice volume control. And also the sound level ranges from 0 to 255. And the volume also ranges from 0 to 255. And so they work perfectly together. Also, thank you to Nicholas's mom for discovering and sharing this hack. Now, let's add a few more cool features to our player. Let's add a mode where instead of showing icons, we display a volume bar in the first row of LEDs and the song number in the bottom row. This mode will be turned on and off using the pin 0 event handler. So first we'll go back into JavaScript. And here we have to create a new variable for this. Let's call it display icons. And this variable will just be an indicator of what mode we're going to be in, icon mode or volume bar mode. And let's make it false by default for now. And now, in our play control function, we need to add an if in front of all of our basic.showLEDs block, so that it doesn't show the LEDs if display icons is false. Oh, I forgot to add it here. And now, in the forever function, the forever loop, I'm going to put a block of code, this. So what this does is, it checks that power is true and display icons is true. And in that case, it does this for loop, which plots the volume bar. So we can turn on individual LEDs using the LED.plot function. This function turns on a LED at a specific coordinate. So with this x value and this y value. This function here is pretty much the same thing, except it turns off a LED at this x value and this y value. And the x and y values go from 0, 0 in the top left corner to 4, 4 in the bottom right corner. And so our volume control ranges from 0 to 255. And we only have 5 LEDs in a row to display it. And so for it to display accurately, I divide the volume of the music by 50. And so here, I'll turn it on. So if our volume is, let's say 100, 100 divided by 50 is 2. And so that means the LEDs with X values 0 and 1 will light up. If we put it up to 200, 200 divided by 50 is 4. And so that means the LEDs with X value 0, 1, 2, and 3 will light up. If we put it a bit above 200, then a LED with X value 4 will light up as well, because this value will be a bit above 4. And this gives us a pretty accurate volume control. Here, I'll actually play a melody, and we can see if this works. And there we go. Now, let's add an event which will allow us to switch between displaying icons and volume control. And for that, we'll go into blocks. Oh, by the way, this is what our for loop looks like in here. And here we have our plot function and our unplot function. Here, I'll add a new input on pin P0 pressed. So these pins can actually be pressed like buttons. And now in JavaScript, in this pin 0 event handler, we're going to clear the screen and set display icon. And if display icons is true, we're going to set it to false. And if display icons is false, we're going to set it to true. Actually, I'm going to set display icons to true by default. because in the challenge rules, we have to show the icons by default. Now, if we turn this on and click pin 0, we can change to volume bar mode. Now this works as it should, but we can actually make this more efficient by, instead of writing this, and actually if I go into blocks, this is what it looks like. So we have an if block. So if display icons is true, we set it to false, and if display icons is false, we set it to true. Now, we can write it in an easier way by writing display icons is equal to not display icons. And so what this means is set display icons to the opposite of display icons. And this should work the exact same way. And it does. Now, if we go into block mode, here, this is what it looks like. Set display icons to not display icons. And actually, I forgot to show it earlier, but this is what the race event looks like in block mode. So we select a source and the value. This is all that I want to explain for today. Are there any questions? All right. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next Sunday.